for public consumption as needed. We are going to go through the agenda, the approve the minutes, the Mitchell Modular, the Sunita Williams, and the public safety are the agenda topics tonight. The first topic we'll cover quickly, which is the approve the previous meeting's minutes. So with that, I would ask for a move to approve those minutes.
Recommend approval.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Richard and George. With that said, any questions? Hearing none, coming to a vote on the approval of the previous meeting's minutes. We'll go through the roll call as required on the virtual meeting. Richard?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Erwin?
Aye.
Stuart, the chair? Aye. Okay. So with that, that covers the approve the minutes. The first main project topic is the Mitchell Modulars. Is that going to be you, Mike?
It is.
Okay, so I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. All right, all. For a quick construction update, there's only a couple of quick items here. The install of the PA amplifier and bell system clock timer is all complete. Right now, the only thing we're waiting to do, and we have it scheduled for July 22nd, is the training. We had one training we did just about a week and a half ago, and we ended up scheduling it for some additional training and to close it out on the 22nd. So that's going to happen here shortly. And then we had some miscellaneous warranty work that continued at the site. HVAC thermostat went dark on us for some reason. So we just had the HVAC tech back in there to look at that. They ordered the thermostat and done some other stuff to the BARD unit in the music room. I keep wanting to say art room, but it's the music room. So that should be fixed within the next week or two also. Next we have on the list the project budget summary and ACL update. So I sent that out to everybody on I can't remember if I sent it on Friday or Saturday. I think it was Saturday. Anyhow, so that's in hand. There were some charges on there for the OPM budget, which were through May of 2020 now. So they're caught up, and then there's no pay app tonight for this project. There is a change order, however, for $1,188.15. So we'll ask for your vote on that tonight. That's to change faucets to the self-metering style rather than just the standard faucets. Apparently, some of the kids don't shut the faucet off on occasion, so the water runs. So the teachers have to continually check it. So we're going to change those over to self-metering. And there's a credit in that also for the cubbies that we bought for the previous modulars. We added cubbies in the hallway, and so when we ordered the new cubbies, they were actually we couldn't get the same ones we had before. We got something similar, but there were a less amount of cubbies, but more than enough to fulfill what they needed. And so there's a $75 credit within that $3,188 change order. So anyhow, that's basically what's left there. We don't have, we're still carrying the same ACL for around 21,000. Looks like some of the work's probably not going to be done, but that's where we stand. So we're in good shape over there, and so that's what all I have.
I have a question.
Go ahead, George.
Two, actually. The training, is the fact that school is out a problem in terms of the training? Who's getting the training?
I've let Greg Bass decide who he wants on that. We told him about it, so right now it's just been Greg. I don't know if he's going to have anybody else involved. It's fairly basic. Everything goes through the phone system, and we also have Mark Messias from the school department IT on it also. So that
Okay,
what's what. So
that's fine.
they've had plenty of notice to invite whoever they want to invite. So
All right,
virtual, all the training's online.
okay. And the second question relates to, you know me, one of my favorite things is to say, we're done. No more change orders, no more, pay apps. We're finished. We paid everybody. When will we get to that point at this project?
Well, I'm hoping that we can do that within the next couple of months. I do have some warranty work left, the landscaping, that they have to come back. As I go over there, a couple of the plantings have died. I want to make sure that when we do our inspections that we're supposed to do, that those are. So you have to remember that this was one of the issues where we have 2-year period because we're involved with conservation on this also. But
Right.
we talked about holding some money on that so we could do that.
And we don't really want to plant in August.
No, correct.
Better
No,
to
so
wait
I
until
won't.
September.
Right, correct. 100% right. Yes. Yeah, I was going to wait till early fall.
So even after any plants get replanted, we still have what, another year to wait?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
But you still can close the project out.
Well, but the only way to do that is to make sure you retain funds.
Right. Right.
For
We
a
have
project this small, I would see no reason to close it out. We're not holding a lot of money. It's not as if there's $1 million waiting to be rescinded. So I would say, let's just wait and finish up with conservation and then rescind whatever we have left.
Yeah, we have to have the consultant come in to do the 2-year look-see at the very end.
I don't see any reason to close it out at this point. I was just
Yeah,
asking the question.
Yeah.
It's up to you, really.
Right. Yeah. Our contingency is about 117,000 and some change. So.
Steve, what do you think of that? Just waiting on it until.
Steve's on mute.
Oh, Steve Gentile, can you let Matt Spengler in?
Okay.
He's on the call, but he's a voting member.
Matt Toccio also.
Okay, Matt Spengler's in. Matt, okay.
There I am, thanks. Yeah, I've been listening to the conversation.
Okay.
To answer
Steve,
your, I don't have any issues with letting it go.
Okay. If it was a lot more than 100,000, I would say we should probably rescind part of it, but it doesn't matter at this point. It's not that much.
Well, you got 100,000. Still there, George.
Is that,
You have 117 in contingency, George.
well, do you want to rescind?
Criteria.
Well, do you want to rescind something like that?
I think it's up to the group. I'd look to Steve, like you asked Steve, and if you're fine, then it's fine.
Okay.
But I guess the
Right.
question is back to you, Mike, in terms of when do we start to ask the question again? Is that September, October?
I'm sorry. You're broken up. What?
Yeah. A question that goes back to you, Mike, is at what point do we come back and ask that question? Or is that something you guys will just address?
We talked about it in September or October once the plannings are done and everything else. I think, I'm fine with whatever way anybody wants to go here. I just want to make sure we have enough to
Let's just review it back.
landscape architect when he comes back in to look at it and we get the sign off about the
Okay.
conservation permit.
Okay, great. Okay, any other questions for Mike before we go to the voting items? Okay. In terms of the voting items, we have 3 voting items. I'm going to put them together unless there's an issue. Mike already spoke about one, which is the change order number 4, which is the faucets. We went through that quickly for $3,188.15. The other 2 items are Harbor Networks, clocks and paging system. One invoice for $23,922.40. And the last invoice for the clocks is $3,525. Do I hear a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, George. Any questions? Hearing none, coming to a vote. We'll do it by voice through roll call. Richard?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Irwin?
Aye.
Stuart is a aye for chair. And Matt, are you the representative for the user group?
Correct. That's an aye.
Thank you. Okay. That's it for Mitchell Modulars. Okay, the next topic on the agenda is Sunita Williams. And Hank, is that you?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And Michael Kaskak should be joining us shortly. There he
He's
is.
one of the attendees, so you need to bring him in, Steve.
Okay.
Oh, and Sue Nekis is there also. Good.
Who's here? Yep.
There was
Okay, so I
a roadblock to get in this time for some reason, but I got in eventually.
So I sent out the agenda earlier. The contractor continues to make his way through the punch list, both on the outside and on the inside. There still are items in both categories, but it's much shorter than it was before. We also had the architect walk through and do a 1-year warranty check, and that came up with about a dozen items. And the contractor's beginning to go through those as well. Most of those were minor. Let's see, in terms of those punch list items, the cage that goes up to the roof on stair number 2 is now fully enclosed and lockable, and there's plexiglass, so that should be all ready. I doubt any kids will ever get up there. I hope kids will never get up there. The O&M manuals and the as-built drawings are continuing to come in and continuing to be reviewed by the architect. I'd say we're 95% plus or minus on those. On the exterior work, we also had the wetland specialist come out and review the wetlands areas, identified about a dozen plants that needed replacement. Shrubs, those have been now replaced. Nelm, who did the work on the field and trails, did half of that work, and EDI, who is a sub to Bacon, did the balance of that work. So we are still waiting for grass to grow on the North Swale area. Once that is fully established, which we hope it'll be real soon, they do have watering set up there. Once that's fully established, then I think we can get the conservation agent in to do a final walkthrough and look to close out the order of conditions. As you may recall, the wetlands planting was done 2 years ago now. And so we would be on target to be able to get that sign off as this would be the second year. And both years there were some replacements that were required, as well as some removal of invasive species. Otherwise, the contractor is trying to get as much done during this week because summer school will be starting for select special education students at the Sunita Williams School starting next week, the 20th of July. Although that'll only be mornings, Michael can fill you in on more of the details. We're using that as a push to try to get everything completed. The change order that you'll be reviewing tonight, we hope will be the last change order on the project. It does include several items that have been hanging out there for quite a while, and we finally got through some negotiated agreements on those, and those are reflected in that change order. And I can review those if and as needed. And then the pay app also includes release of retainage. So as the various subcontractors complete their work, complete their punch list, and submit the O&M manuals, then we are releasing the respective amounts from the retainage, or reducing them proportional to their work remaining. And there's also a Doran Whittier invoice, which we'll be voting on. But perhaps the largest item, and maybe we want to discuss that first, will be the intent to rescind about $9 million of the appropriation, which we discussed briefly last time, but may require further discussion. Attached to what I sent out was a summary that Catherine had put together, and we're very close with what accounting thinks we have, so we're still trying to reconcile that. But the total unencumbered amount is about almost 10.5 million. So we feel that with this being the last change order, that there's sufficient money to release 9 million of that and rescind that back, which was a number that we had discussed also with Dave Davison. So Stuart, I don't know if you want to discuss that further.
Sure. I mean, we have time to do that. We also have the invoice. So I would certainly ask the committee if we feel the same as we did the last discussion, for send 9 million. And I think we need to agree on that. Or if we think it should be a different number. So I'll open it to the floor for any questions or comments. And if people could just sort of raise their hand if we're going to get into a lot of discussion.
I think it's a great idea. We should do it.
And do you agree with the 9 million, George?
Absolutely.
That's 9 million out of the 10.5. That would leave $1.5 million for the budget, in the budget to close out any last remaining
Yeah, there's virtually,
surprises.
I mean, we probably will end up rescinding much of that anyway in the future, but this allows us to continue to wrap things up and so forth.
Okay.
That's my feeling.
Others? Erwin?
Yeah, I agree with what George said.
Okay.
I don't see any downside in rescinding 9 million now.
Okay. Richard?
Yeah, I would also agree, and I think that it adds to the flexibility to the town, which I think is very, very important at this point. So I very much support the proposal.
Okay. So Sue and Michael, from a user group standpoint, full committee, do you have any concerns?
No, I think it's great that we can do that.
And I agree. I think it's 9 million sounds like the right number to do at this point, this structure.
Okay. Now, is this something that Steve, we have to vote on? Or
Yes.
is that?
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right. So unless there's any, I don't see any electronic hands up or anything other from.
You're muted. Stuart, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So I don't see any more hands, electronic hands. There's one attendee in the audience. I don't see any asks there. So I'm going to put forth a motion to rescind 9 million of this project's budget back to the town. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Richard. Any questions? Okay. And Michael and Susan, you're both working group voting members?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. So that creates the quorum. Okay, great. All right, I see no questions coming to the vote. Roll call. Richard?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Erwin?
Aye.
Stuart, the chair. Aye. Michael?
Aye.
Sue?
Aye.
Great. All right. That's super. And is that something, Steve, that you write a formal note? Do I need to write a formal note? How do we do that again?
Catherine writes a memo to finance and to accounting that indicates that the committee has voted the action and identifies the amount.
And I think George, just from various conversations in the past, I would suggest, Steve, we also CC the Board of Selectmen as awareness,
Okay.
and the school committee as well, Sue.
I can share that information at our meeting tomorrow evening during subcommittee updates.
Right, but I think just in terms of the memo, I think from a CC
Sure.
perspective, I think it's good to get through those communication channels. Anybody has any issue with that, raise it now. Otherwise, I'd like to make sure it's well known. I think it's a very good project, as we all know, came out very well. And I think that's a significant rescind. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. With that, Hank, unless there's anything else, we'll go to the voting items.
Well, I guess if we're going to conclude with the voting items, I know, Michael, you wanted to give a brief update as to the school and what's happening this summer.
Right.
And what might happen in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
And also ask the question about costs associated with the COVID-19 prep that you're currently doing.
Right, and in the interest of time, I'll try to put it in as best of those things in as best of a nutshell as possible. We are opening next month. Well, we started today with staff coming in for the kids that were not able to access remote learning. The majority of them are autism spectrum. They're in what we call the ELC program in Needham in kindergarten through 8th grade. That we were supposed to start on July 6th, but we couldn't get enough PPE in, so we're starting with students on July 20th, which is next Monday. And this will be sort of a test run to help us figure out what we'll be able to do and not do in September. I'm very proud to say and happy to say we did not plan this. No one planned this pandemic. That Sunita Williams is certainly the one school, elementary school, that could handle the 6 feet distancing that we need. Should we have all the students in the building? That's still a question, because we're not sure if that's the right thing to do, or if we're going to do a hybrid model, half in, half out every other week. Also, with the technology we have, it certainly is a great campus to be doing remote learning in, if and when we have to do this again. You know, many people are thinking about even if we get all the students in September, we may have to get them all out again for a couple of months, flu season in November. It's quite a juggling act that we're doing this summer, having to get those red, yellow, and green plans all in order. DESE needs our plans by the end of the month, and then we will be able to communicate to the community what our opening plan will be at the beginning of August. My parent community, family community has been wonderfully patient about it, very supportive, because there's just so many different variables here that we're really not quite sure what we're going to expect. So I go back to that summer school. We're able to get some things done. We put up some plexiglass. As you see in supermarkets and other places, we're trying to be mindful of not destroying this beautiful building and putting in things that are unnecessary, but we do have to focus on safety. So with that in mind, I wanted to ask the question if we would be able to use any of the construction budget money to help us prepare for the reentry of the students. And I see that as a benefit for two reasons. Number one, it will minimize the permanent altering of the brand new building, which we didn't even get to spend a year in. Hopefully this pandemic will go away and not be as it is a year from now. We'll have minimal change to the building. The second thing is I think it would help the whole school community, and as we all need to do things. Some other buildings are much more crippled by this than we are, just given their age and the sizes of the rooms, that there'd be more funds available out of the money that FEMA's giving the town for the school, or that the school gets from other sources, the school system gets from other sources. And I would just wanted to throw that out there and find out if that was even a possibility that people would think about.
That's it. Hank?
Yeah, Stuart, I should note that it would probably fall under FF&E and or technology. Both of those line items, we've long since exceeded the amount that the MSBA will reimburse us for. So it would be unlikely that we would get any reimbursement for those items. We also wouldn't plan on buying hand sanitizer or masks or anything like that. This would be for plexiglass, for clear dividers that can be used within the classroom and hopefully survive and be used in the future after COVID is over. Right now, it's my understanding that the town is actually looking to FEMA funding to get reimbursed on some of the expenses they're using across the town, including public safety and other departments. So we thought it'd be useful just to raise this question and get a sense from the committee.
Yeah, I think it's a great ask. However, just from my perspective and where I sit, I think it's outside of the scope of the project. And I think there's two pieces to that. One is, you know, where do you get the equality with the other schools? Just because they have a budget for project to spend on that, how do the other schools feel? And is it fair that they can't get something because they have no funds or the town is giving the funds? I almost believe that the request should come from outside and into the project versus inside the project. I am interested in everybody else's opinion within the PVC committee, but I do believe, given the scope of it, it should come from outside, like we had in other projects where either the Board of Selectmen, the school committee, or whomever has the authority to make that request, and it becomes very transparent within the town. Just my opinion, but from where I sit, I'm interested in the other committee members. George, Irwin, go ahead, Irwin.
I think Michael sort of spoke to the equity issue, because if the town is going to get funding to deal with modifications, that could be used for the other schools if some of that expense comes out of the project.
Right.
But I think your idea about a request from outside is probably a good way to go.
I could give a concrete example. One of the things that all the schools are struggling for now are desks. And we will use the surplus desks from Hillside, which are still over there, because a lot of the elementary schools, we order double desks and single desks, but a lot of the elementary schools, I think Mitchell and a few other, their classrooms have tables, no desks at all. And I think this is true for Elliott and some of the other schools, Broadmeadow. So when you think about, as I said, if we did not need some of those resources that the town needs to get, because even the extra desks from Hillside will not be enough for the students to all come back into the classrooms at their own desk, 6 or 3 feet apart, we would need less of that. And there lies the balance of the parity. It would leave more in the kitty, or more in the pot, so to speak, for the other elementary schools.
Sure, but I think it does well. George or Richard, any comment from you?
Yes. I think that, hello? I think that,
You're not talking? Please.
we all set here?
Yeah, go ahead, George.
Okay. I think that it's important that, and I'd suggest the school committee make a request for this. And I also think that whoever is responsible for trying to develop other funding sources need to be involved, whether it's the town manager or the Board of Selectmen. I think that normally we would say no. We're finished with the project. This is an external event that occurred. I think normally we would say no. That's just my opinion. obviously, it's probably not a lot of money, but I'm not sure if you have a handle on that, Hank.
Hank, you're on mute. The question was around the money.
We don't have a budget. So far, it has been organized. The plastic dividers have all been organized through the school committee. But it, like everything else these days, seems to be a moving target.
Yeah, well, that's my concern. And I think that this could easily become a moving budget item that gets spent in a sense without authorization. And so I'd like to see a formality of the process, starting with the school committee saying, this is what we'd like to see happen, and then have the Board of Selectmen or town manager, whoever's handling all of this, make that suggestion. And I think with that, then I would feel a lot better. But I'd also like to see a budget so that it's not, oh, we have $1.5 million left in our retainage. How much do we need? Kind of thing.
Okay. Richard, you have any comment?
Sure, I would agree with George's points. I think I would also add too that it's very important that whoever's working on this on the FEMA side be very much involved, because quite frankly, we don't want to be operating at cross purposes. It could be a situation where, I don't know this, but maybe FEMA looks at the community in its totality. If we're taking one school out of the equation, it may operate to our detriment with respect to the other schools. Just a thought. So that's why we need to make sure that this carefully and thoughtfully.
Thank you, Richard. Natasha, would you like to comment on that, or are you okay?
I apologize for being late.
No problem.
I was in a different meeting. I mean,
That's okay. So I'll refresh the topic. The topic was a request by Michael and the group about using some funds for shoring up the school relative to COVID and some of the activities. And so just asking everybody how they feel about that. I think most of the commentary has been positive, but because of the scope of it, may need to reach outside and get a better handle and then make a request.
I think in general, and I agree with George, I mean, I think in general, under different circumstances, can't take budgets from projects, but this case is so unusual. I don't know if that's what George eventually said, but I feel like we're in a really kind of unprecedented situation. And I think if there's something to make the school work better, I would be, I would be okay with that. Normally, I don't think that, we want to start taking funds to start funding things that we hadn't funded originally, but I think this is a very strange situation and I would support it.
Okay, great. And then Sue, I know you have your hand up.
And I will apologize for my rambunctious puppy in the background, but so I would like to echo what Natasha just said. I totally understand the desire for transparency in the community and for going through all the proper channels. And I do think there has to be coordination behind the scenes. But this is such a unique time and our time frame is very fast. And so I think maybe if we can be a little flexible in how we think about this, if this is an avenue that makes it easier for schools to open, then I think we should do whatever we can to help support that.
Okay. So with what I've heard from everybody, everybody likes the idea. However, there should be more formal requests to the project. I'm not sure if there's a statement or you want to carry that forward, Hank, with Mike and go with Sue, and the school committee works it with finance, and a letter comes into us. I don't know what the right approach is, but somebody from the outside needs to bring that as a formal request. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. And school committee has their meeting tomorrow night. So I think Sue can mention that to them at that time. And I'll follow up with an email to Ann Galati, who is reviewing it for the financing perspective for the schools and see if there's interest and if so, exactly what they're looking for.
Thank you
One of
for
the,
considering
one
it.
of the things that I'd suggest is that we need some kind of an order of magnitude budget for anybody to approve this, whether it's the town manager, selectmen, finance people. If we don't know about how much this is going to cost, then I think that's a problem.
I agree, George, and I think that should be part of the request, Hank, is that it isn't just a blanket, hey, do whatever. It's we ask PVC to conclude is to take this scope forward of X amount and expected actions, I guess.
Okay, I think maybe we'll also start the discussion immediately with Dave Davison, just so we're not running at cross purposes there.
That's a good idea, because that might be a reason to shut that down. I don't know. I don't think anybody would really dig into that level of detail, but I think that might be a problem. I think it's worthwhile to start with him.
Okay. All right, will do.
Anything else, Hank, before we go to voting?
Nope, just the voting items.
Okay. All right, so with that said, we have 4 voting items. I'd like to separate 2 of them and then have 2 of them collectively together. Hopefully there's no issue with that. First, I'd like to do the change order number 27. And Hank, did you want to preface anything on that?
Yes. Sorry.
For the amount of $21,945.
Yes, so it includes a negotiated settlement on some of the excavation work that we did at the north end of the building. That's been in discussion for quite some time with Bacon and also with Wiggly. And we've been back and forth on that multiple times. The other, sorry, let me get that up. The other large items, there was a conflict on the rooftop with the screen wall that surrounded RTU number 2. It required some modification. There was coordination issues involved, and what we ended up doing also was negotiating over that to settle various other things that were outstanding, both on that and on the other large item, which was that north drainage area. There were 2 deducts. One was a deduct on the lighting that is above the platform in the cafeteria. It was specified as being matching to the ceiling, and it all got installed as white lights. Michael felt it was acceptable as is, so that again was a lengthy negotiation. We came up with a credit of $4,000 on the electrical. And then we had in a prior PCO 244, we had thought that we needed to replace the linoleum in front of the media center and charge back the charge back the movers or the furniture supplier. There was an accident when they were moving it in. They put some furniture on top of a can of WD-40. It squirted on the ground. And it was very noticeable initially, but over time it has gone away. And the installer of the flooring told us that if we replace it, it'll actually look more different than it does now. So that's a deduct that takes away the prior add to balance it out at 0. So those are the largest items. I don't know if there are any other questions.
Okay, so I put forth for pay the change order number 27 for $21,945. Do I hear a second?
Second,
Second.
Thank you, George. Any questions? Hearing none, seeing none, all coming to the vote. Roll call. Richard?
Aye.
George?
aye.
Erwin?
Aye.
Natasha?
Aye.
Stuart, the chair, aye. And Mike? Oh? Mute. I know you said yes, but I bet.
Aye. Yep.
And Sue?
Aye.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. The next voting item is the Pay Rec 33 Bacon construction for $122,677.21, which I believe is mostly release of the what am I calling it? The
Retainage.
thank you, retainage. I was going to say contingency. You can see where my mind is playing on contingency all night. I put forth that invoice to pay. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Erwin. Any questions? Hearing none, seeing none, coming to a vote. All in favor say aye, and it'll be roll call. Richard?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Erwin?
Aye.
Tasha?
Aye.
Stuart, chair, aye. Michael?
Aye.
Sue?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right, 2 more invoices, which I'll put together unless there's any issues. The first one is Dorr and Whittier for June 2020 services, $5,648.50. The next one is Tech Visions for point of sale equipment for $3,350. I put forth those 2 invoices for pay. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Natasha. Any questions? Hearing none, coming to a vote. We'll go through a roll call. Richard?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Erwin?
Aye.
Natasha?
Aye.
Stuart, chair, aye. Michael?
Aye.
Sue?
Aye.
Great, thank you. That's all the invoices and voting items. Is there anything else, Hank?
Nope. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. And that
Thank you
concludes-
all. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you for everything.
Thank you. And that concludes the Sunita L. Williams agenda topic, project topic. We're going to go next to the Public Safety Complex and Fire Station number 2. I would just forewarn us all, there are a few topics here. I think there's a little bit of complexity involved in either some of the descriptions or I suspect in the questions. So I would just ask us all to be a little patient as we go through. I think there's 2 important topics that deserve the attention. So I'll look to you, Ken, to drive it, I believe. And then when we get to those topics, various ones, we'll try and manage the dialogue. Does that make sense, Ken and Steve?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm trying to share my screen here, but Steve Gentile, I think you need to give me some rights to do that.
Okay, I'll give it a try. Roger, you there?
Yeah, Roger's there. You should be able to give him the handover.
I'm here. Yep. Roger, how do I make allow Ken to share his screen?
It's actually on, you go down to share screen, you click on share screen.
I do, or Ken does?
Whoever the host is.
Okay.
There's an allow all guests to, or allow
Okay.
all users.
It says all panelists. So
you should be able to do it.
Okay, Ken, go to the bottom of your screen and press share screen.
Yep, I'm not getting any of my open windows. I'm only getting screen to save.
Let me make Roger the host.
It should say share screen between participants and record.
Who can share screen? All panelists.
Yep, you should be able to share it. You just got to find the screen.
Let me make you the host, Roger. This is a little glitch here.
Okay.
Okay, you're the host, Roger.
It is set for anyone to share, so you should be able to
It's not,
pop up and see whatever screen you need to share.
it's not coming up. I've got the file open on my desktop. It's not coming up. It's only giving.
Ken, leave the meeting and join back in. I've had to do that a few times.
Okay, hang on. Bear with me. I'll be back.
Artie Schwarzenegger. I'll be back. Okay. I believe, Steve, that Ken will go through the update and then we'll cover some of those specific topics, correct?
That's the plan.
Okay, thanks.
There it is.
All right, now let's give it a try. Nope.
Maybe Mike Redsky can
Are
share
we
it.
waiting
Might
for
be the
anybody? I
same.
mean, it's all set to go. If who's ever supposed to share their screen.
Yeah, I'm not, it's not showing me any of my, it's only showing me screen, whiteboard, iPhone, iPad.
Can you make Ken the host? Maybe that would help.
Ken, I'm gonna pull up your thing. Let me try to get it to work right now.
Maybe somebody else can.
Yeah, I have it. I can give it a shot. Let's see. Can you see that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, if you just tell me when to turn or whatever, Ken.
Okay, the problem is now my screen has disappeared when you did that. There we go. All right. All right, we'll start with the communication status. Hopefully this is the last month we'll go through this, because by the time we meet next month, it should be up and running. Motorola continues to wire, put equipment in.
You're a little faint, Ken. I don't know if you could get a little closer to the mic, or is something covering your mic?
No.
Okay, that's better.
Okay. Most of the equipment is in the various locations. The next step is to start mounting their equipment on the consoles, which were installed 2 weeks ago. The fire department console is still not finished, and nobody can give me an answer as to when they're coming back. They have a third-party installer, a subcontractor for Eaton today, who just came back from vacation, tried to get her counterpart at the subcontractor, and they are on vacation. So we'll continue to try and work through that this week. Green Mountain is essentially done. They've got to wire the generator over at American Tower, and they're working on pathway optimization now and equipment optimization. And by the end of the month, should be pretty well tied up. There'd probably be a few days into the first week of August for them to finalize everything, but it's all well underway, and keeping my fingers crossed that everything works. Is there any questions on the comm systems?
When do you expect to switch over, Ken?
The day that we move, which will be sometime within a week after substantial completion.
Which is approximately what, middle of August?
Yeah, somewhere the week of the 10th. Early the week of the 17th of August, somewhere in there.
So the existing tower and the existing dispatch area shuts off on that date and restarts at the new location.
Correct. It's a minute seamless transition.
Yeah, but bear in mind, there is debugging and testing before that occasion arrives.
Right.
That's all that they're working through now. That's that first week of August probably that they'll be working through some of those items. Anything else?
Nope.
All right, let's talk a little bit about headquarters. Been working on the punch list on the second floor. KBA has walked it. Keith, I don't know whether the list has come over yet to Consigli. I haven't seen it.
No, we're doing interior punch tomorrow morning, and then we're going to issue it all together. I spoke to Bob about it.
Okay, nope, that's fine. That's fine. The furniture for the second floor is scheduled for the week of the 20th, so that gives us next week to get all the punch list items taken care of. Excuse me, that gives us this week to finish the punch list items. They're working on hardscape on the exterior. If you've been by, you notice the pavers, the front apron's done. They did the granite seat wall by the front, very front of the building. Some of the exterior signage work has started. Some of the interior signage work has been working also. MEP work in the basement is ongoing. They're working this week on starting up some of the systems, including they're going to do a second generator test on Saturday. Working on final painting and lights on the first floor. Prime event work in the apparatus bay. Landscaping work will be probably start a month after we move in, because tonight, as Hank had noted earlier, it's not a good time to be planting right now. So mid-September, we'll probably be looking at doing the landscape work. Various equipment and fixtures are being installed throughout the building. And as I said, system startups this week. And hopefully everything tests out and our commissioning agent comes in and gets everything started. Before I go talk about the soil situation at Fire Station 2, just an update on some of the work that has been ongoing over there. The site drainage and infiltration system work continues. They're trying to do water quality work out in the daily driveway. They did a catch basin replacement in the daily driveway. Some of the site leveling, grading continues. We're looking at substantial completion, as I said, sometime, it says August, September, but we're looking more towards the middle of August right now. Fire Station 2 in September, October of 2021. That's subject to change based on how we get started up after this soils issue. And then PD substantial completion in January, February of 2022. So you all would have received the summary I put together for the status of the soils, the dirty soils over at Fire Station 2. Quick update. Mike, why does my screen keep disappearing when Keith plays with something?
I tried putting up the Word document and it went a little funky.
Well, for some reason now, there we go. Okay. Mike Retzky, did you get anything back on the test on that soil for the pipe? Mike, you on mute?
There we go. No, that went out Friday afternoon after we had loaded those containers, and we had that couriered out Friday. So we should see something on it tomorrow.
But what I'm referring to is if you noted in the summary, there was a third area of dirty dirt that we found concentrated around a clay pipe that necessitated more removal, more RAM, more testing. And if that comes back clean, then we'll be able to pick up our foundation excavation at going the other direction from where we actually started and work our way up into the corner where we first uncovered the original dirt. With us tonight is Phil Peterson from Terra Environmental, who's our LSP. So if anyone has any particular questions for him, he can certainly answer those. But I'll open it up to any questions that you might have after reading the summary. I will say, I think Miles, this is week 8, correct, of the delay?
Yep.
If I'm right. So we're hoping tomorrow or no later than Wednesday, we'll be back on track with foundation excavation in terms of getting the schedule back on back on track. So does anyone have any questions?
Ken, just a further comment on that for everyone's reference, the way we're tracking the schedule is looking at the critical path activities, which is the concrete foundation work, and how that end date is sliding from prior to excavation versus when we can finish based on removal of the soils. And that's what we're evaluating, looking at this week, Ken, myself, and Steve.
I think, Ken, I think it might be worthwhile stepping back for a second and just making sure everybody understands the situation. Because the last meeting we all had, there was, you shared with us that there was a soiled situation. The LSP was in. We felt that the scope of it was X. We knew there was still more to discover. And in fact, the work that's been done has actually uncovered a couple more things to it. And I think it would be fair to the committee in the situation just to, quickly outline. I'm happy to do that based on myself reading your note and having discussions outside of this, but I think it's important for the committee just to outline what we're contending with right now.
All right, well, if you, maybe we'll just kind of skip along the summary I sent out Friday then. We discovered the first soil in the northwest corner, had to stop the work, bring in an LSP. While we were evaluating that, we went back to where we started to dig in the opposite direction, encountered more around a catch basin area, and had to stop again while we evaluated that, and got that cleaned up because that was determined to be a separate event, non-reportable, due to the values of the contamination and the amount of soil involved. So we didn't have to deal with any kind of RAM plan or DEP on that. We got that cleaned up, and no sooner did we start that we found a third area, which was around a clay pipe that may or may not have been related to that catch basin. Those materials were different from the other two areas that we had covered. When I say materials, the contaminants were. And since they were above reportable levels, that became another quote unquote reportable event, the DEP. So we had to reevaluate we had to redo the RAM plan, and that soil could not be sent to a landfill like the soil in the other two areas. We're currently looking for a place to put that soil, but right now we've temporarily put it in line dumpsters over at RTS while we try and figure out where that goes, and that will allow us to get back on track digging for excavations. Excavating for foundations. We're going to work in a backwards direction from what we originally been going. When we get over to the corner where we found the original bad dirt, we have to do a little fancy dancing because of the existence of the existing foundation wall. We need to use an excavation slide box to allow us to get close to that foundation and dig down to where we think the dirt is, or where it ends. We don't know exactly how far or how much. We won't know that until we get down to the bottom of the excavation and find, quote unquote, clean dirt. There's also the issue of groundwater that we'll have to deal with when we get around there. We currently have a frac tank on site that will be filtering the water, and that will allow us to discharge it on site. We don't need a DEP discharge permit. So in a nutshell, that's where we are, where we've been, what we're doing, and where we go next.
So in summary, we have still soils that we haven't completely remediated to the point where we could say we're okay with the site. And the second bit is we have potential groundwater contamination. So those
That's
two
correct.
things we have to contend with.
That's correct.
And we've incurred costs, and we have a projected cost to complete. The projected cost may be in question simply because we're still trying to get some more clarity on that.
It's based on roughly 600 yards of material that have to be removed. It does not, outside of the frac tank, it does not include any groundwater remediation or further beefed up vapor barrier or subsurface, I'll just call it aeration, if you will, that may be required if the vapors are in the groundwater to prevent them from going into the building. It does not include any of that. Right now, we're approaching approximately $450,000.
How much?
$450,000.
Yep. I think you had 462 on the ACL somewhere in there. So it sounds like we have both a schedule and we have a cost, and cost is probably a bigger part of the topic. But with what Ken has said, and I think has been summarized, is there questions from the committee or the group? And just beware, folks, with the screen showing this Word document, this write-up, I don't see everybody's faces. So if you could just use your hand on the electronic. Yeah, George, I saw you raised your hand, but if anybody has a question, comment, you could just click on raise hand within the Zoom window. That will help manage the conversation. Okay, go ahead, George.
Question, has all the soil around the clay pipe portion been removed and it's all over at RTS? Is that correct?
Yeah,
No.
so we're just waiting on the test result to come back for the, he used a sniff, the LSP used a sniffer on the dirt. It came up clean. We're just waiting for the official lab test to come back to confirm that it is clean.
But we don't know where we're going to send that.
Correct.
So we don't know the total cost of that item.
Correct.
And what portion of that is included in the 460? Is there an estimate for that, or?
There is. It was included in the 217,000 or whatever.
Yeah, 197, somewhere in there.
Yeah, but it was included. Yeah, the net was 197.
Right, for the 500 yards.
But
well, that's included. That estimate is included in the 450.
Right, but it was based on landfill disposal, which is can't be done. So there'll be a higher price per ton, per yard, whatever.
So we have some in there, but we don't have a total amount.
Correct.
Because we don't know exactly how we're getting rid of it.
How it's going to be disposed of. Correct.
Okay. And the soil associated with the other two locations has been taken care of. The only question mark regarding cost is whatever it might cost us to do the cleanup of the groundwater.
No, the area around the catch basin has been completed. The area of the first discovery, the northwest corner, has not been taken out yet because we can't get at all of it because of the existence of the wall, which is why we're working backwards.
So there's an additional amount of money it's going to cost us over and above the 460 for that corner.
It's possible. We based it on 600 cubic yards of disposal. If we have to take more out of there, then yes, it will cost more.
But there is an assumption that you've got in that estimate that includes having to take some out of there.
Correct.
It just may not be accurate at this point until
Correct.
you do it.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, George. Erwin?
Yeah, I have a few questions. I'll start with asking Ken, and maybe Phil Peterson could help with some of the answers. Let me just, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is the first area was fuel oil impacted soil, to the best of our understanding. Is that correct? Because there had been a fuel oil tank there at one point?
Correct. Yep.
The second area was the limited removal action, which has been taken care of. And the third area is by the clay pipe. What was it about this? I can understand by the fuel oil tank that there would be petroleum odors, and you would suspect, based on the history, that it would be petroleum impacted soil. What was it about the appearance of the soil of the clay pipe area that indicated it may be contaminated?
It had that dark, ugly look to it.
So it was appearance, it was just the appearance of the soil.
Right, and then once
there was no reading on the instrument indicating volatile.
Well, we sampled it and sent it out, and it came back positive.
Positive for what?
We did screen it.
That one, Phil, do you have the screening results on the area around the clay pipe? What was in that one?
So we did field screen it. We did have a level of VOC, so then we took a sample for characterization and also for offsite disposal, and that's where we found lead, another contaminant, and some other PAHs in the soil, which triggered a release. So it was a little bit different than the fuel oil, say, from the UST.
Phil, was there any analysis for PFAS at that location? Or is that
No.
what we're waiting for?
No, we're not going to test for the PFAS. Came up from a facility that the disposal contractor selected. They were going to thermal treat the material. They have identified another facility that doesn't require it, and based on this is sort of an emerging contaminant.
Right.
And so based on what looked at the guidance, we're not in a GW1 drinking water area. And also it's a fire station is not one of the locations that's of concern. They have manufacturing, landfills, fire training facilities where they actually put out fires.
Right.
And military bases. So at this, and plating facilities. So at this time, we didn't feel like it was necessary for the site.
So the results that we're looking for is just further characterization of that soil?
For that soil, we're just finding a home. The disposal contractor did find a landfill, an out-of-state landfill that can take it. It's not on their list of sites of concern either. So we just got that information late today. Ken may not have known that. And we're putting together the information for the disposal contractor so that material can go to an out-of-state landfill.
Okay, I appreciate that. So just to be clear, we have that clay pipe area soil characterized and we have a place to send it.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Can I, this is Steve Popper. Phil, is the haul cost for this additional or this other facility substantially different than what we were anticipating for the initial landfill?
So I know there's some material going to an in-state online landfill. The clay pipe soil was proposed because it needs to go out of state because of some of the VOCs and contaminant levels. They're going to take it to a thermal absorption. So that is more money than an in-state online. This is the facility they're proposing is probably the next step up. I don't know what the pricing is, Ken, that they gave you, but it's got to be.
I haven't seen any pricing yet.
Okay.
And if I could just ask one more question. The first area with the diesel tank, was there any consideration given to having that soil sent to an asphalt batching plant?
The levels the samples that were collected were right below the acceptance criteria for an in-state online landfill. So it was, so that was the lowest cost option.
Okay.
Acceptable facility. That's why we
okay. Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Other questions? So with that, it sounds like we have a projected cost, but there's question now of potentially higher cost of removal and potentially more area that has to be dug up, but that's a smaller percentage. Is that what I hear, Ken?
I can't speak to the quote unquote smaller percentage because I just don't know how deep we've got to go.
Okay, so we still have an unknown in terms of how far we have to go to dig.
Correct, and only in that one area, that one corner.
Okay, and at this stage of the game, is that something where do we think do we know, or can we project that we need the next 2 weeks to finish digging that up, or what's the actions moving forward?
Pretty much. As long as we don't have any other hiccups, we should get there in roughly 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks.
Okay, and that's obviously got the schedule impact. So with what we know right now, I guess, George, based on a conversation in the past and other projects, is this is an appropriate time to bring up the cost and the contingency, or do you want to?
Well,
I guess we take that to the next after the agenda.
I think we need to bring that up and ask the question: should we just sit back and wait and see how much is eaten away from the contingency to solve this, or do we want to raise people's awareness that we may have to come back at fall town meeting and ask for a certain amount of money to restore the contingency to the level that we think it should be at this stage in the project.
And I think before we open it up, do we have enough information collectively on the project? I don't want to isolate to just this. I think we haven't gone over, Ken, the budget yet in this conversation, correct? Should we, can I suggest to the committee that we finish up the update in this project, handle the next topic, hit the budget, and then bring this up as the final piece? Are you guys okay with that? Because I think it's better if everybody has an appreciation for the ACL and the entire budget, and then I think this topic of where we are and whether we have to raise a more significant request. Okay, Ken, why don't you finish up with the other topic?
All right, next item is the ACL. Some of these items are new. Some of them have been on here. The first one is traffic signals at Fire Station 2. Chief Condon had requested a rework of the traffic signals and the design of the signals over there to allow traffic in all directions to be stopped instead of the original design, which was just in one direction. We have Restore Hillside Site, which has been on there, tariffs, which has been on there, insurance and bond, which has been on there, electric and security revisions, that's not new. Ductless cooling relocation, Fire Station 2. One of the rooftop units was in a bad spot location-wise, and fire department asked that it be moved back away from the edge. COVID costs, I've bumped that up this month in recognition of the fact that I don't think they're going away anytime soon. And at 12 to 15,000 a month, this takes us through the end of the year. But I don't even think that that's going to be enough. I think we're going to go beyond that.
What's included in that, Ken?
Extra cleaning of the toilets, extra wiping down of all the horizontal surfaces, the common surfaces, the extra touch surfaces, PPE. Miles, what am I missing?
No, that's the majority. I mean, when you look even from the site service guy, United is now servicing the toilets 4 to 5 times a week instead of once a week. And we have hand wash stations now as well. And those are being serviced more frequently, in addition to just ordering more masks and gloves and a labor. Yes, and a labor spending 4 hours a day maintaining the COVID plan, really.
Are all workers expected to wear masks?
Yes, and everyone comes and checks in every day. You have to wear a mask if you can't work safely within 6 feet.
It's all based on the original requirements that the governor came out with way back at the beginning. It's Consigli's a little bit more strict. They've got a few more pieces to it that have made it a little bit more strict, but it's basically the government's regulations for construction sites.
Miles, I have a quick question. What do you think is costing the daily cost of COVID cleaning and all of that? Do you have that itemized?
I have right now, like Ken mentioned, we've been running at about 4,000 a week. So if you broke that down to daily, say 800.
Yep. And that's not inside the building, that's outside basically, right?
It's everywhere across the site. It's my trailer, Ken's trailer, outside, inside, any high traffic area, you name it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Roger, could you please add Roy into the panelists? He's in the attendees. Committee member. Good, thank you.
Okay. Next item is PD, electrical and security revisions. That's been on there. I saw the PR just came out today. So we should get some solid pricing on that. And then we'll be looking at that combined with the Fire Station 2 number to see what we need to do with that. Relocate devices at the file room, small dollars, but the file cabinets interfered. There's some switches on the wall that interfered with the file cabinets. Fuming chambers, this is, it's a change order for consigli, but the money for this will be coming from the owner's equipment line item. Same with the key and asset tracking systems. Traffic signals at headquarters. Miles, you'll notice I dropped that number back down based on the response that KBA got from Vanessa. But this is due to happen to rejigger the traffic signals at headquarters. The original design did not work. We have to add signal heads to this. Originally, the plan got lost in space a year ago. This just came up recently in the last month. Keith and I have been working through the hows, whys, and wherefores of this. And when we get down to the voting items, you'll see a PSS for Vanessa's work. Well, it used to be Vanessa Hagen, but whatever they're called now. This is for the actual field work, for the work in the field. This 32,563. Space pressure at the Fire Station 2 apparatus bay. That's controls, but based on what you said today, Keith, the email you sent me late in the day, that may not be necessary now.
Correct.
Okay. LSP services, that's all tied into that 450 plus, along with the contaminated soils, the 217. There's a credit of 20,000. We figured it was going to be easier to have the excavation contractor credit us what he owed us and then do everything on the removal as an extra. So the net there is the 197. The retaining wall at the rear of fire headquarters. This is along the access drive from Lincoln Street to the back of the building. This creates a retaining wall between the curb and what will eventually be the public parking lot, but for phase 2 is fire parking. That number is coming down. That just came in late this afternoon. I think it was 47 miles. Is that right?
It was 48 and change.
Yeah. I had some questions on that we need to talk about tomorrow before I send it on to Steve. The next two items are general requirements for consigli. Miles made note earlier that we're working through these this week. We're going to be working consigli and ourselves. The first one is the 122,000. That is for delays at the Temp facility, which opened 11 weeks later than it was supposed to. So we're going to have 11 weeks more of tent rental, trailer rental, other items that are rolled into that. Similar for Fire Station 2 due to the soil, we're going to have additional delays of tent rental, trailers, the trailer on site at Fire Station 2, staffing, etc. Those two items are going to be kind of handled together. They'll be kept separate, but the concept behind them will be similar. Clean agent system relocation. We had a conflict in the DMARC room between the rack for the video wall and the clean agent system. We had to relocate it. Retaining wall grade at Fire Station 2. There was some exposed waterproofing that we need to add a couple of extra blocks on the retaining wall to get it below grade. And then there's just some miscellaneous revised door hardware throughout that came about as a result of some changes back and forth on some of the scope.
So Ken, in terms of this total ACL, do you have the summary here in terms of the total of this and then what our contingency is and what it...
I do. Bear with me a sec, because I'm probably going to have to get my cheaters out for this. One of these days I'll learn to print the budget on 11 by 17. The ACL totals almost 1.3 million. And that leaves our contingency balance at a hair under 482,000.
All right, so the starting contingency is 1.3 and the ACL was bringing it down to?
Starting contingency was a little under 1.8. Take off the 1.3 and you get a little under 5.
But this contingency list here does not add up to $1.3 million, does it?
Yeah, Stuart, you're
I just wanted to
complicated.
clarify.
The 1.3 had been dropping, and we have to take the change order off of that as well. The change order we're voting on tonight.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that everybody, and maybe everybody's there already. It's just that 1.8 starting, this table in front of us is 1.3, which leaves us about 500K.
Correct.
Okay. Which brings it back to, I think we have another topic, do we not, in terms of the change that came up in discussion today, Steve and Ken?
We've got the voting items. I don't know if you want to do those first.
Well, here's what I think I just want to manage the conversation so it's effective, all right? So if I'm incorrect, let me know. We still have voting items to handle, which we'll handle at the end. We have, I believe, a discussion around, given the contingency is now dropped to what I think is a concerning level, because we may need to discuss whether we need to go out and reach out and get additional contingencies monies to manage this project to conclusion. And the third topic we have, which is a relatively new topic for the committee within this project, and that is the fire headquarters, the Scorba SCBA room topic, which I would leave to Ken and Steve to set the ground, the baseline of that. So I see 3 topics left in this project agenda. Is that fair? Ken?
It's a little, Steve, I didn't get a chance to follow up with you on it. Not sure why we're discussing the SCBA until we have all the costs and information on it.
Well, the aspect drives the question as to where our contingency are. And you're right, we do not have the final determination. However, I think Stuart wanted to have some discussion on that issue tonight to determine how that might affect the decision that he has to make or that the committee has to make relative to where we're headed with available contingency on the project.
Okay, well, with that said, I'll just give everyone a brief rundown of what's going. The SCBA system is what they use to fill the breathing bottles for the firefighters when they go into buildings. Hang on a sec. I just got something from Phil. Yeah, does anybody have any other questions for Phil Peterson, or can we go ahead and let him go?
I think we're okay with the soil discussion. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. We'll talk tomorrow.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Guys.
Appreciate you taking the time.
No problem. Anytime. Thank you.
Could I make a suggestion? Is that yes?
Yes, go ahead, George.
I don't think there's any question that we're going to pay the bills that are in front of us, the invoices that are in front of us. So I think we ought to go back and take care of all of those items, get them out of the way, and then discuss the 2 open items that remain, which is how should we approach the fact that we're seeing a contingency getting very low, and this other item that Ken is about to discuss. I think it would be better to wrap up the invoices and then go back and discuss the other, because we'll be a while doing that.
I'm okay with that. Anybody have any objections? Natasha, I know you have your hand up.
Sorry, yeah, no, it was answered because I asked it. Sorry, I put my hand up and then I spoke, so.
No problem, thank you.
I broke every rule, but no more.
No, it was perfect.
Thanks.
When you got the answer, we should have taken your hand off, but I'm not the host. So anyways.
No, I should have lowered it, but no.
That's okay. So George, I don't see any reason why not. And I don't see anybody objecting, pausing there for a second. Okay, fine. So what you're suggesting, George, is we vote the items, the pay items, and then
Exactly.
handle the remaining 2 items.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm okay with that. So with that, I will do that. Ken, in terms of the order of approvals, are you okay with the way it's listed here?
Yep. Yeah, just go in the order that's listed there, Stuart. That's fine.
Okay, so I'm going to combine.
Excuse me, Stuart.
Yes.
One of the second KBA invoice for 12,000, not the PSS, but the invoice for that has been withdrawn. We never received it.
So the KBA June 2020 services?
Yes. So the 12,000.
No, the 12. It's not on this agenda, Stuart. So if you use my agenda, because I never put that on my agenda, Catherine. So the agenda that's in front of us doesn't have that 12,000.
Right. So we're withdrawing it, right?
Yeah, I never put it on there.
Right. But it was on my invoice list. So I'm just telling
okay.
Stuart not to vote on that one.
Okay. So go with what's on the screen, Stuart, and we're good.
Okay, so what I'm going to suggest is that the first 2 items, the PSS 32 and the PSS 33, I'm going to combine and put forth for payment approval. KBA PSS 32 for traffic signal design and construction for $21,670, and the KBA PSS 33 for the transportation geotech and asbestos services for $12,597.
This is not for payment, Stuart. This is just for approval to engage for the work.
So is 32 for payment, 33 for engagement?
No, neither. Both of them are for engagement.
Okay, so I'll correct myself. I'll put forth for approval of moving forward on this work. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Natasha. Any questions?
I'm still confused. The 21,000 is a request for a PSS 32?
Yes. Yes.
Not for payment.
Correct.
So George, the PSS 32 for $21,670 and the PSS 33 for $12,597 is for approval to move forward. Okay.
Yep.
Natasha, Erwin, you have your hand up?
Yeah. The geotech and asbestos monitoring, why is that coming up as a PSS? Isn't that something that would be part of the something that was known to be needed to be done for the project?
It was, but we, rather than the bids, the numbers that came in we felt ridiculously high. So we're doing it almost on, I'll just call it, for want of a better word, a T&M basis. So as they do the work, we're getting the pricing for the actual work that they did. We have a line item for it, but we're doing it through KBA. It's not part of their original contract. So it's an extra to KBA, but we do have money for it.
So this is sort of an offset of what we already have then?
Yeah, if you will, yeah. Yeah, it comes from a different line item, if you will.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Oh shoot, hold on guys, I just lost my screen. Sorry guys, can you hear me?
Yep.
Can people hear me?
Yes.
Now we can.
Yes.
Where'd it go? Stuart.
Okay, I should be back now. I apologize. All right. So was there any more questions relative to those two PSSs?
Just need a vote on them.
Okay, thank you. Just to clarify. Okay, great. Do through the roll call. Richard?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Erwin?
Aye.
Roy?
Aye.
Tasha?
Aye.
Stuart and I. Chief Condon?
Aye.
Chief Schlittler?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, that takes care of the PSSs. Now, the next one, Ken, is the UTS, of which there's one at 245 and one at 3280, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, they're listed separately on mine, but I'm going to group them together. So I'm going to put forth for payment two invoices. One UTS Mass June materials testing for PSC, $245. The second one is for June materials testing for Fire Station 2 of $3,280. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, George. Any questions? And I can't see the participants. Hold on 1 second.
Stuart, I don't see any questions.
Thank you. Appreciate that help. It's coming up slowly. Okay, with that said, going to the vote. Richard?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Erwin?
Aye.
Roy?
Aye.
Natasha?
Aye.
Stuart, Chair, yes, aye. Chief Condon?
Aye.
Chief Schlittler?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. The next one you have here is the 4728 and the 17,000. Great. Two
And
invoices.
I believe Catherine added an $1,800 one to that this afternoon for intra-systems.
I see that. Do you want me to include that?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'm going to put forth 3 invoices for payment from intra-systems. The first one is for data servers and switches for $47,983. The second one is for data servers and switches for $17,325. And building management system is the last one for $1,800. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Richard. Any questions? Seeing none, hearing none, coming to the vote. Richard?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Erwin?
Aye.
Roy?
Aye.
Natasha?
Aye.
Stuart, Chair, aye. Chief Condon?
Aye.
Chief Schlittler?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. You have a PSS 14 here, Ken.
No, that's an invoice for PSS 14.
Okay, give me 1 second here. This cross into, I don't have that, Catherine. Does that matter?
Well, it is on my list, I believe, for 37,000.
Yes, correct. This one says 35.
The transposer number?
35,752 and 94 cents.
Want to make sure here. I've got a KBA invoice of June 2020 services for $37,452.
It's the 37,452.94
Is correct.
is correct. Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to put forth an invoice for KBA June 2020 services for $37,452.94. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Erwin. Any questions? Hearing none, coming to the vote with a roll call. Richard?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Erwin?
Aye.
Roy?
Aye.
Natasha?
Aye.
Stuart, Chair, aye. Chief Condon?
Aye.
Chief Schlittler?
Aye.
Okay. Do you want to go to the next page, Ken?
Yes.
Thank you. The 1757. Okay. I'm not going to be able to do that. Okay. I'm going to put forth a invoice for Risk Frost and Shumway Engineering for payment. It's May 2020 commissioning services for $1,700. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thanks, George. Any questions? Hearing, seeing none, coming to a vote. Roll call. Richard?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Irwin?
Aye.
Roy?
Aye.
Tasha?
Aye.
Stuart, Chair, aye. Chief Condon?
Aye.
Chief Schlittler?
Aye.
Okay, great. I'm gonna have to, I can't combine these. Okay. I'm gonna put forth an invoice for payment for Milton Cat June 2020 generator rental fee for $2,612.50. Do I hear a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, George. Any questions? Hearing none, seeing none, coming to the vote. Roll call. Richard?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Irwin?
Aye.
Roy?
Aye.
Thank you. Natasha?
Aye.
Stuart, Chair, aye. Chief Condon?
Aye.
Chief Schlittler?
Aye.
Okay. You've got a 1948. I don't have that on this.
Stuart,
list.
before you get to the requisition, there should be an invoice on Catherine's list for police details for, I think it's $400.50.
Correct.
Want to add that? I want to add that in there.
Okay, what about the, okay, fair enough.
I figured it's a regular invoice as opposed to the requisition.
Yeah, no, I hadn't opened one on the KVA, but you opened up, Catherine, with that being removed. So fair enough. I have an invoice for the town of Needham being put forth for police detail, 7-1 and 7-2 on Chestnut Street for $400.50. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thanks, Irwin. Any questions? Hearing, seeing none. Coming to the vote. Roll call. Richard?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Irwin?
Aye.
Roy?
Aye.
Natasha?
Aye.
Stuart, Chair, aye. Chief Condon?
Aye.
Chief Schlittler?
Aye.
Okay. The last item, Ken, is the 179.
No, well, you got the requisition, Consigli's requisition, the 1.9 million, and then the change order.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate that. So I'm putting forth the Consigli Construction Requisition 17 through 2020 for $1,948,642.56 for payment. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Richard. Any questions? Hearing none, seeing none, coming to the vote. Roll call. Richard?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Irwin?
Aye.
Roy?
Aye.
Natasha?
Aye.
Stuart, Chair, aye. Chief Condon?
Aye.
Chief Schlittler?
Aye.
Great. And one more, which is the CO18, Ken.
Yeah, Keith, do you want to hit the highlight ones there, the 10,000 pluses?
Sure. Okay, first one on the list is CR 231R1 masonry wall revisions at Sallyport B115. The original plans had all the partitions in the Sallyport being wire mesh partitions with gates and whatnot. The police requested to change them to CMU walls to, there's an evidence room in there. They wanted to make sure that impound room didn't get cross-contamination. Our original came in at well over $65,000, so we revised it to make them 3/4 high walls with metal partition, with wire mesh partitions on top to reduce the HVAC changes. Total for that came out to $39,997. I'll just keep on going unless anyone has any questions.
Just go to the ones above 10.
Yep. RCOP 235, north elevation unsuitable soils. This is for removing the unsuitable soils on the north elevation of Fire Station 2. It's a total of $12,056. RCOP 301R1, catch basin replacement at Fire Station 2. There was an existing catch basin on site that we were going to connect to. When they reached into it, they found it was in such bad shape that it was going to collapse once they did it. So we had to wind up replacing that catch basin. Cost for that was $21,079. RCOP 312, upper level ceiling revisions at police headquarters. The east side of the hallway, police headquarters, all the rooftop units for the building are directly above that. and the size of the ducts was making us lower that ceiling significantly. So we wound up working with Consigli for a few weeks, thinning out the ductwork and relocating the closets to minimize the amount of soffits and make the rooms not look really bad. Originally, the soffit was going to go right in the middle of the room. The issue being the curtain wall has a 10-foot height, so we can't really lower the ceilings below 10 feet, which would have required a soffit in the middle of the room, but we're able to reduce it as much as possible and align the soffits at the entries to the room. Cost of that came in to $13,242. CR 316 is dismantle existing lockers at police department. This is to dismantle their existing lockers and reinstall them at the temporary facility at Hillside. The original plan had them using the lockers that were there, the elementary school lockers, a group of them, but they were so small, they couldn't fit any of their equipment into them. So they had to wind up bringing their lockers over. Cost for that was $13,107. Sewer connection at Fire Station 2, when they went to put the connection in, there was a lot of stuff in the street that did not show up on the survey. So they had to wind up doing a bunch of exploratory work to find a route to connect it. Total for that was $23,458. And the last large ticket item is CR 322, which is the RAM plant dewatering. And this is to install the dewatering system to filter the groundwater during the removal of the unsuitable soils at Fire Station 2, as required by the LSP. Total for that is $27,544.
Okay, any questions?
I have one. I'm assuming that those costs associated with the environmental issues on the site are part of that 460 that we talked about, Ken.
They are, that's correct.
Except here we're actually putting them through.
Some of them that we've priced out, like with the Fire Station 2 on suitable soils, that was the first batch that went out. And the dewatering system, that we have a contract number for, so we're able to plug that in. But yes, that is part of the 460, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead, Roy.
It just seems weird to me. How many lockers are we talking about for this $13,000 relocation?
There's 48 miles. You remember the count?
63.
Okay.
So we did this from Fire Station 2 to the temporary facility, and it was 2 days to dismantle and 2 days to install. And there was quite a few less through that process. So that took 4 days, and talking with our superintendent, we made this 5 days.
Oh, it just seems like a huge going from 0 to 13,000. But all right, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to put forth for payment change order number 18 for $179,000 and $179,329. There we go. Put forth and look for a second.
Second.
Thank you, Richard. Any further questions? Hearing none, seeing none, coming to the vote. Roll call. Richard.
Aye.
George.
Aye.
Irwin.
Aye.
Roy.
Aye.
Natasha.
Aye.
Stuart, Chair, aye. Chief Condon.
Aye.
Chief Schlittler.
Aye.
Great, thank you. Okay, I believe that concludes all the invoices and approval items. Ken?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes,
Anything
that's
else?
all.
Okay, great. All right, with that, two final topics. I would like to get the SCBA, just make the committee aware. And Ken, the reason is, if I may, Steve and Ken, is just I think this could have an impact. And I think it's important at this stage of the game with what's going on. We just get an understanding. I understand your comment about you may not have all the pieces, but there's going to be an impact. That's what it sounds like. So I'd appreciate if we could just understand what is the situation and why, and where we stand in the actions.
Sure. I'll just qualify it at the front saying I can't give you a cost and I can't give you schedule impact. Those are the pieces of information we don't have yet. But the genesis of this, again, the SCBA is the breathing apparatus for the firefighters, those things they wear, the air tanks they wear on their backs. And the original spec called for Mako equipment. And there is one Mako distributor for this part of the country. If you want Mako equipment, you've got to go through them. We had the stuff ordered. We're working on deliveries and contracts and the things of that nature. And the guy sold the compressor out from underneath us, basically. And we went to the Eastern Regional office, and the guy there said, yeah, okay, too bad. We went to their national headquarters in Chicago. Yeah, well, that's too bad. They didn't seem to want to try and help us or find anything. So we looked for alternates, and we came up with Bauer, which is can everyone still, there we go. Okay. My screen. Oh, Keith, you took the screen off. That's why.
It did it by itself, but I'm okay with it. I don't need it anymore.
Yeah, but it turned me off. So we went to find alternate equipment, which was this Bauer equipment. And that's what we currently have contracted for. The original plan called for the compressor to be in a room off the mezzanine, with the fill station to be in a room off of the apparatus bay at ground level. Through the whole process of getting new specs, new information on this Bauer equipment, the supplier suggested an all-in-one unit, which the compressor and bottle fill is all in one unit. But that would not fit through the door. The door was already up because it was a masonry wall. So we really didn't have an option there. So we came up with the two separate pieces, the compressor and the bottle fill station. And it worked it out that it could all go in the same room on the first floor. All parties were involved with this, from KBA's consultant, Mitchell Associates, to the manufacturer, to representatives of the town and Consigli. When the equipment arrived last week, the tech that was installing it said, you know, you can't put a door in this room. And everyone said, well, why not? Said, well, it's not ventilated and the heat will burn the compressor out in a year and a half, 2 years. So that started a dialogue with KBA. They were going to get with Bauer, the equipment manufacturer, and find out, okay, why didn't this come up when we were all sitting around a table trying to figure out what we're going to do with this? And it went back to Bob Mitchell of Mitchell Associates, who was not at the meeting, but one of his folks was. And he insisted that we can't do it that way. It's an unsafe situation. It needs to go back up to the room on the mezzanine like it was originally designed. You can imagine it was a little frustrating all of a sudden hearing all this stuff when it was, when it had already been blessed by everybody involved. So now we're in a situation where we're looking to move it back up to the room on the second floor. We do not have we do have electrical up there, but we do not have any piping for, to get from the compressor down to the bottle fill station. So that would be an additional cost. There may be some minor electrical costs, but not much. So we've got the cost of, we've got to take the bottle fill station out to get the compressor out. We need to use a forklift with white or gray tires because the apparatus bay floor has been completed already, and using regular tires would just mark it up. And then we've got to get it up there, pipe it, hook it up, and run the lines down to the bottle fill station. So that, in a nutshell, is where we are. We don't know the costs of that, nor do we know the schedule implications, because we haven't had anybody take a look at it yet to see exactly what it's going to take. We're not owed any of this work, so it would be all completely extra, with the exception of the electrical in the mezzanine, the room on the mezzanine.
So the focus right now is to move the compressor back to where it was originally supposed to be located?
Correct.
Well, wasn't that included in the cost originally?
It was, but we since bought it and installed it in the lower room. So to move it, it would be extra because they've already fulfilled their contract by installing it in the ground floor room. And that's the way we bought it from Bauer, because we changed the specification on the equipment.
Erwin, you have a question?
Yeah, for the original manufacturer, what we were gonna spend for that, it's, what we're spending now is comparable, less, more?
I think it was a little bit more. Miles, help me out, but I think we were about $5,000 less with this compressor than we were previously.
So originally, Consigli didn't even own purchasing the compressor.
Right.
We owned the fill station, which the Bauer model is a little more expensive than the Mako, but the old change request that was submitted way back when was primarily to cover the budget shifting from Ken onto Consigli's side for the compressor.
For some reason, the original owner's equipment list had the compressor on our side and all the other stuff on Consigli's side. And it didn't make sense to split it up and have two different contracts trying to install basically the same manufacturer's equipment. So we took the money out of our owner's equipment line item and shifted it to Consigli's to cover the cost of the original Mako equipment. But I think the Bauer compressor is about $5,000 less than the Mako compressor, if I remember correctly.
So just, Erwin, you still have a question?
No, I have a feeling you're gonna follow up on it.
Yeah, I guess I just want to be clear. The reason this change is coming about is because of the equipment that we had to buy, or it's because now we're waking up to the fact of safety and concern and we need to go back?
It was twofold. The original change was made because the Mako guys sold the original equipment out from underneath us, and we needed to find a substitute. And we certainly weren't going to have Mako supply us at that point after the stunt that they pulled.
And I think at that point, the lead time was too far to even get another Mako. It wouldn't have been here in time for the building to open up.
So our original design assumed that equipment, and the design did not consider alternatives.
Correct.
Just
go ahead, Erwin.
So, Ken, you said there might be a $5,000 benefit, but you're still waiting to find out what the total costs will be. But this would be at least some offset to whatever this cost is going to be?
Not really, because we've already, I'll just say, assigned that money. We've already absorbed it into the contingency, so it would only serve to lower the contingency by whatever the difference was.
Okay. Thank you.
Natural question to ask at this point is, what are you going to do on Fire Station 2?
They don't have one.
Oh, they don't have one.
No, they fill the bottles at headquarters.
Okay. Thank you for that answer.
Can I offer some clarification here?
Go ahead.
It's not that another unit wasn't considered originally. I mean, yes, the spec was based on the Mako. However, there were other brands that could have been bought. But the intention was always to have it in the separate room where the compressors are. That happens to be, in this case, on the mezzanine. The reason for this is, and by the way, the unit, combined unit that they were considering at one point actually has earphones that have to be used by the firefighters when they're using that equipment because of the problem with noise, ventilation, all of those things. I think they should be in separate rooms. They should always be in separate rooms. Why we actually lost track of that during this change, I can't totally explain, but we do think that it really is in the long-term interest of the fire department and the project to put it back where it was originally going to be. And hopefully we can minimize the cost to do that.
I guess the concerning part, and I don't know how the rest of the committee feels, but it just feels like it's a design cost that we shouldn't have to bear. I mean, we went into this with a design and now it's changed because we have decided to go back to what we originally were. But why didn't we go with the original in the first place? And I know there's been some articulation here. We don't have the full cost. Maybe the cost would be very, very, very small. And I think that would be the best outcome with basically zero little cost. However,
we are working towards there being no cost to the project.
Okay. That and well, there's gonna be some cost because it's a schedule issue too. But I think that's what we got to hope for, because that's just concerning at this late in the game. And I don't know how the rest of the committee feels.
I agree.
Just, you know, we'd like to get the station opened up. We're what, 90% there, 95% there? Anyways, any other committee member have a comment relative to this? SCBA, I do like it. Scuba without the U, right? Self-contained breathing apparatus. The U is just the underwater, right?
That's it.
But the SCBA, self-contained breathing apparatus replenishment station. Any other, from a committee member perspective? Erwin?
I guess in fairness, what was originally planned in the project was undercut from us by the original manufacturer, the way I understand it.
That's correct.
So I think that should be recognized as well.
Yeah,
right, but I think that you know, I don't know how much of our buildings are constricted, but I would imagine, and I'm just going back to various discussions over time, that certain equipment, you know, we aren't pinned into a corner, and I think this one we got pinned. The design didn't account for variation. We went right down a single path. And I may be oversimplifying that and being unfair, but I just, until we get the costs, it may be moved. But I'm concerned based at this stage of the game, but I'll knock on wood and hope that KBA and team can work through it fairly quickly. Steve, anything from you?
No, I listened to the conversation. I think we should get the impact defined. I know KBA is working on the PR for the change out in location. So let's move down that road and then we'll figure out where the going to fall.
A suggestion I might make to KBA is I would formally complain to the vendor and let them know that you're very unhappy about what has happened on this project, and let them know that that's going to be influencing decisions that you make in the future regarding recommendations for their equipment. I really would. I would hammer them for it.
George, we did that when we called them, and they said, "Yeah, okay, whatever. Do what you do."
Calling them does nothing. Send them a letter in writing, and let them know how unhappy you are. It makes a big difference. They could ignore a phone call.
We will do that, George. We will do that.
It's a very good idea because it makes a huge difference when it hits the CEO's desk and he finds out that some of his people are doing this. This is very unprofessional, in my opinion.
No question. No question. I'll get you the name, Mike, because it was the president of the company, I think, that they talked to.
Please do. Thank you, Ken.
Yeah, good suggestion, George. Thanks, Mike, for taking that forward. Dennis, Chief Conan, do you have any input or comment regarding the situation?
Just that, you know, I think a lot of it's already been said. The original concept from day one, going back 5 years when I was talking with Bob Mitchell on programming, was that this would be in a separate location. So as Ken said, we ran into the situation we ran into with Mako. And I think we tried to make it work, but when you go in the equipment is not installed currently. It's just sitting in the room unless if they installed it today. But when you go into the room, the compressor, they have access panels on both sides, so they need access, which takes up a big hunk of the room. And then the fill station is in front of the cascade station, and there's no room to, store bottles. So you have the issue with the sound and whatever other issues, safety issues that may be a part of the compressor in the room. But and then the vendor, as he's bringing it in, he's telling us that you can't have it in this room with the door closed and there's not correct ventilation and so forth. And I wish that this stuff was made known during that phone call meeting we had, but it wasn't. So I think from my perspective, looking out decades in advance, having it in the correct room, I think is the way to go. It's overburdening the room that it's in right now. And the SCBA, the compressor room upstairs is being underutilized. There would just be one small compressor up there, and it's not what it was designed for. And the other part of the design was we originally had in there a oxygen fill station, which we took out of the program. We'll continue to rent the oxygen as we do now, but that's something that the department may in the future want to install sometime in the future, and that opportunity would not be there if it's left the way it is. So I think for a lot of reasons, we probably should try to fix this. If we have to live with it, we'll live with it, but it's unfortunate that it came down to this situation right now.
All right. Okay, thank you. I appreciate, understand there's more discussion and interpretation of cost and schedule, but I thought it was important for the committee to hear this. It's an important topic. Okay, with that said, I think we closed down our discussion with the topic of the contingency, which, as we said more than a few minutes ago, that we basically have a contingency that's sitting roughly at about $500,000. When you consider the opening was 1.8, now we have an ACL log of 1.3. This project is only, I'm going to say in loose terms, I'll leave it to the professionals to correct me to the specifics, but we've got a project that's about 1/3 of the way through. The headquarters is done. Fire Station 2 is got some foundation, but we've got some slippage there. We haven't even taken down the current fire headquarters and the police department. So we have no idea what's lurking underneath that. And I think it's, from my view, I think the risk of contingency lies more in pulling up the existing police and fire headquarters and what's underneath that would cause a problem versus maybe some fixtures and maybe some adjustments within the building. But having said that, $500,000 on a 60+ million kind of project like this, and only a third way through, just numbers tell me that we could be running a risk if we don't discuss how we manage contingency going forward. If you manage just at $500,000, it seems to me that we're running with not just our arms behind our back, but both our legs tied back, and very little room for the project management and the rest of the teams to manage to conclusion. So it seems that we should be seriously considering how we address the contingency. With that, Steve, I don't know if you want to add anything more to that. George, from all your experience and running the committee in these projects in the past, if you have any comments, and then certainly from the rest of the committee, welcome some thoughts. But I think we do have a situation, and the reason it's being brought up now is given the timeline that if we want to go seek funds, we have some work and discussions to do immediately to reach towards town meeting, which would be in the fall. And given when things get approved and how they come into the project, again, we don't want to be in a situation where the project teams really can't move, where there's actually higher costs because of that. So the timing is now to have this discussion.
I second everything you said, Stuart. If we don't have sufficient capacity in the contingency, we run the risk of having to basically stall the project. So, sorry about that.
Yep.
My recommendation is that you folks should consider moving a request forward to expand the additional funds for the project caused by the found condition of the soils.
I would also add COVID into that, Steve, just to jump in and just maybe to work a few preliminary numbers. I don't want to get into too many numbers here, but because we have to work the topic if it's worth going forward. But if you consider the soil remediation of 450, you add the COVID of 200, unforeseen, COVID was not foreseen. We're talking somewhere in the neighborhood of $650,000, $700,000. We can work the number. I think the more important point is whether how the committee feels about the situation of the contingency and do we request additional funds. George, do you want to add anything from your perspective?
Since I was the one that raised the red flag here a few weeks ago, I feel that it's terribly important for us to look at where we are now on the project. It's hard to estimate what percentage complete we are. We're almost finished with the headquarters fire station, and we think we've got our hands around minimizing changes as we move forward with Fire Station 2 after we get through this environmental issue, and the same with the addition of the police section of the building at downtown. However, doing it with a $500,000 or less contingency, I think, is a problem. And probably if we were to take that additional money for the environmental condition and for COVID and say, look, town, this is the issue that we have. We don't believe we're going to have enough money to finish this project. And we think we need to increase our contingency to the point of covering those two items at least. That would mean that we had something like $750,000 plus the $500,000, be about $1.25 million. I'm sorry, did I do that right? Yeah, about $1.25 million. I would feel a lot better finishing this project with $1.25 million than I would at 460 or 80,000. It's I think we're in jeopardy on this project if we don't go and ask for that funding as soon as possible.
Other committee members? Erwin?
Yeah, if we look at the environmental issue, the town is the responsible party. It's not the project. The town is responsible for the release that occurred there. So whatever is being spent on soil removal, groundwater pumping, groundwater remediation, soil remediation, that's an expense that is really the town's responsibility to meet. So I don't think it's fair or appropriate for it to come out of the project budget. So I think we need to keep track of what those costs are. This is through no fault of the project. And I would agree with the COVID costs as well. And I think I agree with what you and George have been saying, that the sooner we do this, the better. But I fully support requesting those monies be reinserted into the project, because the contamination is the town's responsibility.
That's right.
Others?
No, I agree with what has been said.
Okay.
I don't have anything to add.
Okay. Roy or Richard?
Well, saying nothing else to add. I think it's been well said, and we need to move forward.
Okay.
Yeah, I concur as well.
Okay. So with that, I'm going to suggest that I request probably a chairs meeting, Steve, and we need to have that discussion, or I'll recommend from this discussion with your support, I don't think we need to vote, but I hear the support, is to open up that dialogue very quickly with the right folks, which would be finance and the Board of Selectmen, given this. And then I would recommend that we go after the discussion, not go after, but I recommend the monies be wrapped around the remediation of Fire Station 2 as well as the COVID as a reasonable starting point.
And make sure that it also includes the scheduled delays and any costs associated with that. I think you're only going to get one chance at the
apple. Yep.
Of the apple. So what we need to do is make sure that we identify as accurately as possible what all the items are, and all were unforeseen conditions, and let them know that, obviously we had changes in the job that affected our contingency, but like any other thing, we're managing the project, and we don't expect to see these kinds of things happen. But make sure that we get everything that we think we need to get to bring that contingency back to where we think it should be.
To manage project. Fair enough. Chief Condon or Chief Schlittler, any from a user group perspective comments?
No, I agree with what's been said. I think it's a good approach. It's a sound approach. The contaminated soils and the COVID were not part of the project. It's not something that, you could have planned for, but the costs that are there, and, that's really what's hit us.
No, I agree as well. And I almost wonder down the road if any of this money, you could go to the state or the federal, because of the state of emergency and the COVID. I wonder if any of that would be reimbursable later down the road.
We did put that in as part of Dave Davison's office, asking to, everybody. I mean, I'm sure both chiefs got that email from Tatiana asking for the cost. So I put it, but it's only through the end of the year. So, I gave her an estimate through the end of the year based on what we had at that point, which was really only a month and a half or 2 months worth of expenses for the COVID stuff. And I kind of extrapolated that through the end of the year, and that's all that they were covering at that point. But as I said earlier, when we were talking about the COVID costs, I don't think it's going away come the end of the year.
Wow.
Ken or Stuart, as far as the COVID goes, you have a cost of $200,000, and like Ken just said, he doesn't think it's going away anytime quick. And for the duration of this project, it seems like it might be there for the whole time. Is that something that you extrapolate to a higher number than the 200,000 if you're going for the
the 200 only takes us through the end of the year at that 4,000 a week roughly.
It's a fair point. So what I might suggest is that I'll go offline and take the action from the committee that we need to address this, and maybe Steve and Ken and I can sit down. I think it's a good point in terms of projecting out since COVID is now known, and what is the risk if we have to go through another full year of support of the activities required to comply with CDC or the state topics, and come back with a number. And I think, does it make sense? Probably I can start that discussion with the selectmen and the finance, and then come back in 2 weeks to this meeting with a number that we might recommend as a collective, as a committee. Would that be a good approach?
I would like to see the number and specified, itemized, so that before we send it to select board. I think it's a good idea to have a chairs meeting as soon as possible, however.
Right. I think it's, we need to start it, right, George, and then do our work. And I'd like the committee to agree on a number before we present that.
I think that's necessary.
Um,
We know approximately when the town manager and the select board needs a warrant article. It's probably in late August.
2 weeks.
Right,
Yeah,
Steve?
exactly.
Is that right,
Correct.
Steve?
That seems to be right. Richard, you probably know that better than I, but I think I would like to, I'd like to bring this up to Dave Davison. I'd like to at least get that answer. When do we need to have that number identified in the warrant? And second of all, if you have no objection, let them know why we're exploring that date.
As long as we don't give out any numbers until we are all in agreement.
Yeah, I think order of magnitude type numbers I probably should give him, just to get his reaction as to what's involved. We look at a number in the 750,000.
Mr. Chairman, and to add to Steve's point, again, it's not just a question of identifying a number from our perspective. On the other side of the equation, Dave Davison and the Finance Committee have to identify where those funds are coming from. So this is not an easy task. The budget has been, balanced for the year. Obviously, there are changes in revenues and so forth that may accommodate us or may not. But all that has to be factored into this very complex equation. Second point I would make too is that when we articulate a number, well, initially when the warrant is crafted, usually numbers are left blank, and that's for further discussion and so forth. At some point, a number is identified to a warrant article, and that becomes the ceiling. The town moderator will not let on the floor of town meeting an amendment that to increase the amount that is stated in the article. It can always be reduced, but it cannot be increased. So whatever number we pick and decide to go into that warrant article, we have to live with it and we have to be happy with
Unless you go to the ombudsman, right?
it. Omnibus, yeah.
Omnibus. Ombudsman is what I feel like. All right, so.
That's exactly right. Thanks for that.
That's good. Okay. I'd like to wrap up this project agenda. We have a couple of voting items post this, but is there anything else on this? And just to, again, replay it, I will take the action moving forward to open up the dialogue on this with the board, the select board, as well as the finance director, work with Ken and Steve to figure out the costs that we think are reasonable to put forth. In the next meeting, present that, and if we agree with that, then we will use that number to move forward, depending on how the dialogue goes. Is that a fair action?
Stuart, I just want to make sure, you said you would initiate the discussion with the
Yes,
finance.
I'm happy to contact the select board as well as they, unless you feel, Steve, it's more appropriate for you or somebody else to do that.
Well, I think I think I should be talking to the town manager, which is really through Dave, just to let him know. But I will mention that there will be follow-up from just more specific discussion that you will have with them.
Okay, so why don't you and I touch base tomorrow morning and just dot our i's and cross our t's, and we'll go forth. And the expectation is in 2 weeks' time in our PVC meeting, we'll come back with where that dialogue stands, as well as I would expect that we would have a number to present, an itemized list, making up that number that we would like to present more formally. That's
okay.
what I recommend.
Fine.
Everybody support that? Okay. George, Natasha, you okay with that? Erwin?
Yep.
Roy?
Yeah, that seems good.
Okay. Erwin?
Yep.
Okay. Richard, you're good with that?
What it?
All right. Thank you. All right. Then I will, Ken, anything else? Last call?
Nope, I think I've talked enough.
I talked
if
more than you tonight. I know that.
If I could add one thing, Stuart.
Yes, George.
John and Dennis, you still there?
Yes, George.
Yes.
I just want to say that some of us still love you guys, in spite of the fact that you guys get a lot of grief, especially you, John.
Thank you.
Don't worry about it. There's a lot of people that really appreciate what you guys do, and I don't want you to forget that.
I appreciate that. The town, I will say the town's been very supportive of us, so, we appreciate that. And it does make it a little bit easier.
That's nice to hear, George. Thank you.
Make sure you pass that word on to your troops, because sometimes they get, I'm sure they get down seeing people saying the things they say and doing the things they do. This is still a great country, and some people will come to realize that pretty soon, hopefully.
I appreciate that very much, and I will pass that on. Thank you, George.
Yep.
Thank you, George.
Thanks, George. I second that as well. Okay. Thank you to both chiefs, the KVA team, and everybody else. I'll close down the public safety agenda topic. Thank you. PVC, we have 3 voting items, and I don't know if there's any other open topics, but
Stuart, do you still need me? Do you have enough without me for this one? I got to let my daughter open her gifts.
yes, I have enough. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody.
It shouldn't take us but a minute or two, unless there's any other topics. So I would like to put forth 3 different invoices. So I'll go down one by one. First one is for the high school expansion. I'm going to put forth a invoice from Rist Frost Shumway for the May 2020 services final invoice for $700. Do I hear a second?
Absolutely.
George, you taking my place on the small bills? I like that.
No, I'm glad that's the last one. Not that they're not doing their job. It's good to see that it's coming to an end.
I like that. All right. Any questions? Erwin, I see your hand up, but I don't think you have a question, right?
I have my hand up.
No problem. All right, great.
Resting my chin on it.
None. Coming to the vote, roll call. Richard?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Erwin?
Aye.
Natasha?
Aye.
Stuart, chair, aye. Okay. Yeah, that's 5. Ooh, I'm glad I said that right. Okay, great. All right, next invoice is for the Central Ave Jack Cogswell Storage Building for Beacon Integrated Solutions June 2020 services for $551.26. Do I hear a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, George. Any questions? Hearing none, coming to vote, roll call. Richard?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Erwin?
Aye.
Natasha?
Aye.
Stuart, chair, aye. Great. Last invoice. School master plan for Dorr and Whittier services, June 2020 services specifically, $11,422.58. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Erwin?
Yeah, I guess I just beat Richard.
I don't think so.
That voice caught me off guard. I was looking down. Thank you. Thanks, Erwin. Okay. Any questions? The only question I have is we've done the final report. There's nothing else left to do. Am I correct? Hank?
That's the final report for the Emery Grover building.
Yeah, thank you.
Has been done, but this is the master plan, which is not yet complete.
Okay, thank you. All right. Any questions? Hearing none, seeing none, let's come to the vote. Roll call. Richard?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Irwin?
Aye.
Natasha?
Aye.
Stuart, chair, aye. Thank you. Okay, is there any other open topics? Any other requested topics, I should say? Okay, so we'll wrap up. I just wanted to say, I don't see, is Ken still on? No, Ken's not. But I think Steve, I just wanted to make a comment in the group, and especially because of the SCBA, the breathing apparatus thing. You know, I know we didn't have all the information, but I think it's important for us, big believer that when we start to hit some of these bumps, I'd rather get awareness up front. So when it really comes down to the you know, real crunch of either numbers or real problem, at least we're kind of up to speed and can work it versus a complete surprise. So I appreciate, I know Ken may not have wanted to bring it to the topic, but I thought it was important to at least have that. I hope the rest of the committee believes in that as well. You know, some of these projects, and especially this big one, is I think we've got to manage it carefully as we go. Just proving that management is going to be important until we get that contingency back. So, any other comments? Steve, you have a comment?
No.
Okay. All right. All right. Thanks, everybody. Sorry the meeting extended, but I think we had to cover some topics. So have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you in a little bit. Thanks, everybody.
Here.
Thanks, Roger.
Thanks, Stu.
Aye.
Thanks all.
Thanks.